Welcome back to the Drowned City spoiler wrap-up. I'm rather Incoherent, and today we'll be covering the Mystic Leaks. Let's get started with Eyes of the Dreamer, a 3-cost arcane slot asset. It's a spell, uses 9 charges. Action Investigate, use your head instead of your book for this test. Before revealing chaos tokens, you may spend up to 3 charges to reveal that many additional chaos tokens. Choose one of the revealed tokens to resolve and ignore the rest. If you succeed and the chosen token matches an ignored token, discover 1 additional clue at your location. When it comes to analyzing this card, I cannot tell you the odds of if you spend 3 out of 4, how likely are you to get 2 pairs, and then it also matters that you're good enough to pass. Like if there are 2 squids and they're both -3s, you need to be up 3 for that to count. I can't tell you the odds of getting an additional clue out of this. What I can tell you is if you just use this 3 times with the max charges, I'd expect to get 1 to 2 clues pretty much every time. That feels right to me. Maybe I'm overestimating it, maybe I'm underestimating it. But I think the majority of the strength of this card is in the fact that it's just 6th sense with a lot of extra steps. At level 0, 6th sense really doesn't do anything. The ability to investigate another location but not get any extra clues is largely irrelevant on the level 0, 6th sense. So being able to instead use this ability, guarantee a few successes, and also just sidestep entirely having to use your book, just unlimited head tests to investigate, is pretty solid. Additionally, you don't have to charge it 3 times and try to get the extra clue as hard as you can. You could just use this 9 times to guarantee you don't auto-fail on 9 consecutive investigate checks. Additionally, you can just not use this at all, only use it to use your head to test, and then use these 9 charges for things like Torrent of Power and other things that either move charges around or spend them for effects. Eyes of the Dreamer is a card where I initially looked at it and was super down on it because I read it and I was like, I don't understand. It's basically getting 1 clue at a time. Compare this to Rite of Seeking, you're much less likely to get these 3 extra clues on your 3 investigates. And then I realized that half the text on this card is horribly misleading about the real use of the card. You're using this to investigate with head instead of book. It's much more like 6th sense. These 9 charges fuel things. The same way you play Akachi with cards that other people can't, Eyes of the Dreamer sort of opens up those cards to any character. And then lastly, rather than using 9 charges to gamble on 3 extra clues, you can use it to guarantee to not auto-fail 9 times, which seems substantially better. So Eyes of the Dreamer to me stands out as just a bread and butter staple, incredible fucking card for Mystic Cluevers. I did not realize how nuts this was until I realized oh, even trying to get the additional clue at all is bait. There's so much text on this card that is not its real purpose. If this got a taboo that said you may ignore, you may not ignore an autofail unless you use 3 charges or something, I don't know. It feels really hard to fix the use case for this card that's been discovered by the community where it's what if just 6th sense but with 9 autofail negations? Because that's what it fucking is, it's crazy. And to be clear, it's not retroactive. You declare ahead of time whether or not you're using it, but you still negate 9 tokens that could have been autofails. Guarantee 9 successes if your head's good enough. Don't need to use book ever. This just feels transparently fucking incredible to me. It makes it so much easier for me to get hype about building with something like Sign Magic because this card's just genuinely really good in a way that level 0 6th sense isn't. I'm hype about this. I'm looking forward to Eyes of the Dreamer a lot. This is a card where I first looked at it, wasn't impressed, and then read what some other people were saying about it. I was like, oh shit, I'm blind. The autofail negation is what fucking sends it to the moon for me. The fact that it is level 0 6th sense is good. It's already just an acceptable card. The fact that it's got 9 charges for stuff like Torrent of Power is pretty sick. The realization that it prevents you from autofailing 9 investigates basically just once you have that level of reliability, it starts to get hard to lose scenarios, at least on the clue front. This card's nuts and I'm very happy about it. Next up, we have its fight brother, Breath of the Sleeper. 3-cost spell asset, uses 9 charges, action fight, use your head instead of fist for this test. Before revealing chaos tokens for this test, you might be seeing the pattern here. You may spend up to 3 charges to reveal that many additional chaos tokens. Choose one of the revealed tokens to resolve and ignore the rest. If you succeed and the chosen token matches an ignored token, this attack deals +2 damage. Now, everything I just said about Eyes of the Dreamer applies to Breath of the Sleeper. Here's the problem. Getting a clue is notably better than dealing a damage. When you first start the game, it is almost intuitively conveyed to you that an action is worth a card, is worth a resource, a clue is worth a damage. These things are presented as though they're all roughly equivalent, but the truth is an action's worth more than a card, and both of those are worth way more than a resource. and a clue is worth more than a damage. So 6 cents for dealing 1 damage is not as impressive. Now, again though, this is unlimited charges. This is unlimited kill a rat or an acolyte with no chance of auto fail. This is not a bad thing at all. If you have a 3 health guy that you're gonna need to hit for 2 damage and then 1 damage, you can use this first, burn 3 charges, and try to kill him in 1 hit. Like, having your 1 damage finisher in your form of like Garrote Wire or your Lugers, those are always nice, but this one going first has a very real chance of just killing it in 1 hit and saving you the shriveling action. So yeah, Breath of the Sleeper it's worse in that damage is worse than clues, but the fact that it does deal the additional 2 damage, making using the charges much more appealing on this card. Additionally, enemy cascades are horribly dangerous, and having the guaranteed success against 1 health enemies, or enemies reduced to 1 health by your fighter, I think Breath of the Sleeper, despite damage being worse than clues, might have just as much home as Eyes does in clue decks. Where it gets more awkward is in flex decks. You don't really want to be running Breath and Eyes, I feel, because then you're investigating for 1 and you're hitting for 1, and you've used play actions to get this in play, so you're down in tempo. And I sort of just feel like at the end of it, you're really gonna need some of the higher compression spells. Whether you're using like a Dragon Pole or Sign Magic or whatever, I feel like if you want Breath and Eyes, you need to find some extra arcane slots to actually make the build come together and give you the action compression to do more than flex at a bad rate. Any deck that's dealing 1 damage and finding 1 clue and setting up to do it is generally speaking just a pretty slow flex deck with too much setup. I don't think you want both of these in the same deck unless you're playing with Sign Magic and putting a ton of assets into play, in which case that archetype can work, but it is a sketchy archetype to pursue. It has a lot of setup, it can go quite badly sometimes. That said, when you're looking at fighter or cluer, not flex, my opinion of these cards is very, very high. And in this cycle, you have the Investigate with Eyes of the Dreamer, you have the Fight card with Breath of the Sleeper. There is actually not an Evade card in this cycle. That's probably for the best. It would be hands down the best Evade card ever printed, being able to give you 9 auto-succeed evades. Like nothing Mystic has would come remotely close if it matched these cards. But I actually had to stop and check, like, am I missing something? Is there really not one? Because it's the first time in a long time we haven't seen the full 3 cycle. Next up, we have Katarina. I don't know how to pronounce OJK. I am too American to even have an idea. Let's go with Katarina. She is a 2-cost ally asset. Ally, Clairvoyant, and Dreamer are her tags. 1/2 Soak. Reaction: when you reveal a Chaos token during a skill test you are performing, exhaust Katarina. Reveal tokens from the Chaos bag until a token with a symbol is revealed. Resolve that token and ignore the rest. The main way this card would be valuable is if you just need to cancel stuff. If for some reason canceling is inherently beneficial to you, then Katarina is suddenly valuable. However, in terms of symbols, if you're only rolling the symbols, your chances of hitting specifically the autofill go from roughly 1 in 16 to like 1 in 8, or maybe even higher than that. I don't know off the top of my head what percent of the bag is symbols in most campaigns. But I look at this and I feel a little bit stressed about a text line that massively increases my chance of autofill. And I don't really have an opinion on Katarina, to be honest, because she's clearly an enabler for other things. So it's worth looking at other things and thinking, is Katarina worth putting in my deck to enable this? But in isolation, Katarina is a card that makes your odds of passing a test worse. She's not a great rate for soaks, thankfully she's still relatively cheap. And there's not a ton of competition for level 0 ally assets in purple specifically, but I do not look at this and see something inherently powerful. I'm trying to look at using Katarina during the timing window of like Eyes of the Dreamer, where I think it does work how you would want it to, but it's still like breaking my brain. Like the odds of hitting the match aren't even that good. Like if you use Katarina and you already saw autofail, then she becomes a lot better from the Eyes of the Dreamer stuff, but I don't know. I'm looking at Katarina and it's breaking my brain a little. I don't think there's anything where I care enough about getting more cancels that Katarina becomes good. Maybe I'm blind, maybe my brain's just refusing to like wrap itself around this card, but I don't see it. I don't think she's a bad card, I don't think she's binder filler, I just think she's like a part of an archetype that isn't really there yet. Next up we have the Sign of Xel'lotath, a 3-cost arcane asset ritual tag, Myriad Seal, a non-autofill symbol, uses 3 charges. Forced, when your turn begins, you must spend 1 charge or discard this. A Lightning Bolt, discard a copy of Sign of Xel'lotath from your hand, replenish all charges on this copy of Sign. I don't get it, man. I spent a while, just like I did with Katarina, looking at this being kind of confused. So like, ideally you spend 3 resources, you use the other 2 copies of this with this Lightning Bolt, so 3 cards, 3 resources in action. and you remove the squid for 9 turns. And, well, I guess 10, you discard it on the last turn, but like, why? Right? I don't get it. What are we doing here? I don't have anything else to add. I don't think it's worth 3 resources, 3 cards, and an action to get rid of a squid for 9 turns. Even if it were playing on like very hard, getting rid of the squid might be more passable and more manageable than drawing autofails and -8s. I'm not sure what this is for. If you do know, please tell me. I'm confused. Okay, I'm gonna do a double take for Spectral Shield. I actually stopped during my first take and I asked my Discord if I was reading it wrong. During these videos, I always think a lot harder about cards than I do during my initial first impressions when I'm talking with my friends in the community Discord. This card's nuts and I just didn't see it the first time I saw it. I'm blown away by how good this is. Spectral Shield is a 1-cost event, a spell, and a spirit. It's fast, so hell yeah. Play only during your turn, attached to a player card with health and or sanity at your location. That's just a player. You don't need to like have an ally asset, investigators, or player cards. I don't even know why it gives it the option of putting it on other shit, but sure, whatever. Forced, when attached card takes 1 or more damage or horror, cancel 1 of that damage or horror. The owner of Spectral Shield must remove 1 charge from an asset they control. If they cannot, discard Spectral Shield. So first, just some mechanics things. It's the owner, not the person you give it to. So if you give this to your teammate, you keep paying the cost. It's not on them, so you don't have to worry about like messing up their combos. But I'm not even really looking at this from the perspective of keeping your teammates alive, although obviously it's good if you're using it for that. The idea behind this card feels like it's not optional, right? You must remove 1 charge of an asset you control. You only discard it if you can't. And charges are insane. Rite of Seeking is worth 3 clues per charge. You really don't want to pay that for 1 damage or horror. And you don't cancel all the damage, you only cancel 1 portion of it, right? You take 3 damage, you cancel 1 of it. You take 1 damage, you cancel 1 of it. Doesn't matter what the increment is, it's just 1 more health or horror every time something happens to you. And in context of stuff like Rite of Seeking, this is not a very good card. If you're looking at this on somebody like a Diana, you're probably happy to have a, cheap, easy to use cancel effect. And ideally you have something with cheap charges that you can get rid of and then put this under yourself. But if you don't, that's fine. You can lose a Rite of Seeking to scale yourself up. You don't want to do that. You want to have something like Branding Athago or Divination, or wait a second, Eyes of the Dreamer. This has 9 charges. So does Breath of the Sleeper. And Spectral Shield only costs 1 charge each, and those don't even really need to use their charges if they don't want to. So Spectral Shield in conjunction with these new assets basically just says, take 1 less damage or horror when you take damage or horror. You can just play the deck that way, right? You can focus on high draw, not use the charges, just play it like 6 cents without the autofail negation, and use it as a battery to fuel your Spectral Shield. Spectral Shield to me feels like it is single-handedly so much damage negation that if you play this on somebody and you're in an Eyes of the Dreamer type of deck, that person will not die. Just, that's not gonna happen anymore. They have to play no soak and autofail multiple tests that deal the same sort of damage for them to die if you Spectral Shield them. This is a fucking ludicrous amount of health and horror. I'm shocked this is a 1-cost, 0 experience fast event. I think this might quietly be the most broken card in the set right now. I'm gonna let my hype die down a little bit before I make the full end of spoilers roundup, but I'm pretty sure this is gonna be in my top 10 cards and probably very close to the #1 spot. This shit's fucked up. This is wild. There's no evade event, because why are you worried about them hitting you? You'll tank it. The rat deals 1 damage, Spectral Shield him, who cares? This seems absolutely insane to me. This is probably the best survival card in the entire game. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but for 1-cost fast, 0 experience, you're certainly not doing any better than this. This is fucking incredible. Like, to the point that it might be bad, that it's not good that it's this strong. But yeah, that's insane. Absolutely wild card. Really derailed the video. I had to like stop and talk to my community and ask if I was misunderstanding the card. This is nuts. I will say, reining in my hype a little bit, there was stuff like Lost Arcana and Uncage the Soul level 3. I'll often say, unlimited charges is unnecessary. You have enough charges. And maybe Spectral Shield is just like so much health it doesn't matter, right? Maybe the difference in this and a 1-cost 0 experience fast event that says heal like 2/2 isn't that different, right? The fact that it's like making you in my eyes, almost invincible, probably isn't important, in the same way that getting unlimited charges from Lost Arcana isn't important. But if this were a 1-cost fast event that cost 0 experience and healed you for 2 health and horror, it would be obviously one of the best healing cards in the game. I think this is still nuts. I think it's gross overkill. I think it's easy to overhype how much healing it's giving you because frankly, most of it's gonna be unnecessary. But it is making you invincible. And for 1-cost fast 0 XP events, I can't fucking ask for more from a card. This is insane. All right, let's rein it in, move on. Sword Cane got an upgrade this expansion, and honestly, it's a pretty damn good one. I've never been a huge Sword Cane guy. If you wanted to use it to deal your 1 damage to get your evade, it was never a bad card. I personally always found other things I wanted to do with my card slots and my game plan, but I have never thought Sword Cane was a bad card. And I think the 2 experience upgrade to it is actually pretty damn massive. This is easily worth 2 experience in any deck that ever ran Sword Cane. It gains the foot commit, that doesn't matter. It becomes fast. So instead of preventing the attack of opportunity, you just don't trigger one in the first place and you gain an action, which is obviously incredible. We're not done yet. Both of these options gained an additional piece of text. You may now deal 1 damage to an enemy engaged with you when you play it. So it just instantly does a damage when it comes out in addition to triggering this action. And then when you use this action, it also comes with the +1 now. So it gives you an action, it gives you a free ping damage, it makes your test more reliable. If you're playing Sword Cane, you should be playing the upgraded version. And frankly, the upgraded version is so much better that it makes a very real argument that maybe Sword Cane is a plan worth pursuing immediately now. Because again, with stuff like Down the Rabbit Hole, going into session 2, you can just pretty much immediately get both Sword Cane level 2s for 2 experience and be very, very happy with that purchase and how it affects your ability to fight. Is it an insane card that solves all of your issues for fighting? No. But is it an incredibly good Swiss Army knife that comes at great rates? Absolutely. We've also got Enraptured being upgraded. There's now a 2 experience version of this that comes with an additional question mark, and that makes it much easier for Mystics to use, very notably. Previously, Enraptured was at its best when you were alongside of a Seeker so that you had someone crushing book tests to give it to, but now it's much easier to use in Mystics if you take the upgrade, and again, very easy to do it quickly with Down the Rabbit Hole going into session 2, just like the Sword Cane I was talking about previously. And also, the upgrade's kind of fucking insane. If the skill test is successful during an investigation, place up to 3 charges and/or secrets on assets controlled by investigators at your location. So for 2 experience, you get triple the number of charges and/or secrets, and also you can commit it to your own investigation using head as opposed to relying on somebody else, making it much more usable in far more circumstances. This is just good. This is just really fucking good. It would likely demand immediate upgrades if you're not playing alongside someone with high book, because having a level 0 Enraptured in your deck where you can't just trigger it yourself with this question mark is a lot harder to deal with. But yeah, while I said with Lost Arcana, there's typically enough charges to get by, if you're playing a deck where that isn't the case, this is probably the most efficient means of getting more charges you could possibly put in your deck. This is good. I personally don't value extra charges nearly as much as many other people. I think you already have enough. And I think as a result, when I play with Enraptured, I will be let down with it. However, it is probably the most efficient, best means of adding charges to shit in the game. It's very good. Also worth noting that in Norman decks, we have officially outgrown deduction level 0 cycling, and now we can use Enraptured cycling and just have unlimited charges for everything. That's nice, honestly. I've never been too hyped about cycling level 0 deduction. I've always wanted to be like, yeah, but the other Seekers are cycling level 2 deduction with practice makes perfect. Sure, it's not guaranteed every turn, but sometimes they play deduction level 2 like 3 times in one turn. Enraptured level 2, I think, is notably better than deduction level 0 in the Norman decks, but this is just obviously a good card. If you have a place where you need charges, then this is the way to do it. And lastly, we have Eldritch Brand. I've been wondering what an official card like this would be costed at for a while. This card type is shit. Not sure how often, if ever, I'll be buying it, but holy shit is this card hype. It is a 5-cost permanent exceptional card. That is to say, it costs 10 experience to get it. And when you get it, you choose a non-signature spell asset in your deck and record spell's name was branded in your campaign log. This is your branded spell. Your deck cannot include more than 1 copy of your branded spell. But what is your branded spell? Reaction: before you draw your opening hand, search your deck for your branded spell and play it, paying its cost. So obviously there is some downside to this in that your economy is going to be more intensive having this guaranteed cost in addition to your opening hand. It also does give you a free action by playing the card, but the main thing, like that's all super minor irrelevant shit. The main thing is the effect of this 10 experience permanent card is you start with a specific card in your deck. It does have to be a spell. How good is that? Is it worth 10 experience? Which spell is the best for this? I think just off the bat, one, this is actually an 11 experience card because I am going to be playing with Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm going to run the numbers down the rabbit hole. It's going to make my deck cheaper, and I'm going to put Down the Rabbit Hole in my deck because it's not only a net game, but it also means my opening upgrades are going to be bigger. So first of all, this is actually an 11 experience card in my eyes. But second of all, I don't think I'm ever buying this remotely early. I can see like a 50 experience Mystic deck picking this up and being obviously improved by guaranteeing they get the job that does their role, right? Starting with Rite of Seeking and play on your Kluber is obviously fucking crazy. That's going to be a thing that improves your consistency and makes you win more games. However, for 11 experience, that's kind of a big ask. I'm not sure what experience point this becomes easy to put in your deck, but for 11 experience, you could have bought 2 copies of Deny 5, almost. You could have made yourself completely invincible, although admittedly, you were already completely invincible in the new meta. But the point is, 11 experience is a shitload. That's game-changing amounts of experience. In terms of just like getting a lot of consistency, for me, and the tempo's not the thing. I'm not doing this to get the play action and to have a slightly more reliable opening hand. I'm doing this because there is a card I'm building my whole deck around. And the deck works without that card to some degree, but it's much better with that card in play. And frankly, that card doesn't exist. There is no card so strong that I'm running Eldritch Brand to enable some sick combo deck. This is a bells and whistle upgrade. It's probably one of the best bells and whistle upgrades in the game. It fucking better be at 11 experience. But I'm not sure I would ever get this before like 50 experience in anyone. And that might sound like I'm saying I'm not getting it, but we're talking about Mystics. We're talking about the class that will regularly end campaigns well over 60 experience. So this is a card I'm glad to have in my binder. It's a card that excites me. But in terms of its actual power level, I'm not ranking this much higher than Overpower level 2. This is largely the same thing. I am spending extra experience that I didn't really need to add more consistency to my deck. Is it good? Obviously. But it's not a priority. It's not shaping the meta. It's just good. Coming over to the Mystics as a whole, as I said with Seekers, I can't really comment on Agatha in terms of hype levels. She's a character where I struggle so much in accurately assessing what her deck and play pattern is going to be without theory crafting her that I'm just leaving that until later down the line. I had the whole set of cards, and sometime after I post the full spoiler review, I'll do some Agatha theory crafting and get back to you on how hype I think she is or isn't. Obviously, I'm not particularly hyped for Gloria Goldberg. I've already got Gloria. She's already so strong that I choose not to play with her. And honestly, she's getting stronger with the new signatures, I think. So yeah, Gloria is insane. I'm not hyped about her. And the fact that I haven't judged and already have the investigators for Mystic does make Mystic, you know, just notably less hype than the other classes who have investigators that I have opinions about that are actually new. Going through the list of new cards for Mystics though, they have the Great Work, which as far as I'm concerned is just 7 additional experience. And maybe that's like an optimistic way to view a card that could kill you. It's almost Kiran's Oval in terms of its net negative of risk. However, on the flip side, I feel like as Mystics, I've got the tools to keep myself alive, especially with the new Spectral Shield. Blood of Thoth is a complete miss. It's a random Doom card in a set with almost no Doom synergy. I thought this was bad and didn't have the support it needed to see play when I didn't realize it said Exhaust right here. This is a card that's getting memed on pretty severely, and, you know, it deserves it. The Exhaust line makes it insanely bad. To get 2 resources, a card, and a play action, I'm gonna call that, you know, 3 actions. That's a little bit more than it really costs, but you're giving up stuff to run it. So let's say it's break even at 3 actions and you're benefiting at 4. You have to place Doom for 12 consecutive turns. Like, what are we talking about? That's most of the scenario, assuming you play it turn 1. There are some scenarios that cannot go to 12 turns, but that's most of the scenario to barely break even. This card's a complete meme. I didn't realize it said Exhaust and I still thought it was bad. With the Exhaust, this is unplayable trash. Breath of the Sleeper and Eyes of the Dreamer are just a very hype set of new cards. Eyes of the Dreamer, I think, is inherently better. I think just like killing rats is less good than getting clues, you know? But they're both very, very strong cards, giving you a lot of new ways to play with charges. And Spectral Shield is far and away the best thing to do with these charges. But yeah, these are both very powerful new Mystic assets that do some crazy, crazy shit. I don't quite get Katarina. Maybe that's because I'm refusing to think too hard about Agatha, and once I theorycraft Agatha, Katarina will slip into place. But right now, I kind of don't understand what the point is. Sign of Zelotov is something I will never understand the point of. I need help. Somebody please teach me. What does this card do? Because I don't fucking get it. Spectral Shield, I didn't get, now I do. It's going on the best list. I am predicting this card to be nuts and possibly get a taboo even. Eyes of God and Athoa is really fucking cool. Play with the top card of the encounter deck revealed is absolutely sick. One thing I do want to ask the comments is, do we have dev clarification on Eyes of God and Athoa? Do we know how the timing window for Gloria's ability works? Because normally pick Investigator Order is not something that has a timing window. You do it every phase with Gloria, but it's not clear when you do it. So like, can I just have this in play as Gloria? Like, the top one's Obscuring Fog. The fighter can take that one. He doesn't want to draw any cards. The next one is Rotting Remains. I, as Gloria, will pass that head test. And the last one, whatever it is, goes the Rogue. Or do I have to declare ahead of time while only seeing Obscuring Fog what the rest of the order is? Because that does affect how good this is. It's obviously good. 3 Meat Soak in addition to being Holy Rosary, not quite worse for experience, but generally Mystics do want the Meat Soak. Using that in conjunction with this is just, like, if this has any value to you, Eyes of God and Athoa is worth playing with. Is it going to be the best thing you do with your deck? I don't know. It depends on the exact rulings with it, all the combos with it, but it's a cool card and I'm glad it's in the game. Meanwhile, Whispers of Doom is just in the Spectral Razor school of cards. It's solid enough. 4 head test, usually sometimes 5, very rarely 6, but if you succeed, you just kill the enemy or deal at 3 damage if it's elite. If you fail, place a Doom. Whispers of Doom is solid. It's fairly expensive. I think I'd probably prefer to run Spectral Razor over this, and in most characters I wouldn't run on both, but it's good enough. I like the new Sword Cane. Spiritual Echoes a full miss for me. Fundamentally don't know what the card is for. Transfiguration's absolutely insane. Is it super powerful and broken? I don't know. It's at its best in the worst investigators, which inherently does make it weaker because you're putting it in decks that were originally bad, and then you're super reliant on hitting it in some of those decks. Like, the sweet spot for a character that is insane with transfigurations, like, it's not everyone. Not everyone wants this. But there's some crazy stuff you can do with this. I'm looking forward to seeing what the most cooked things are. This is very interesting. It's very hype. So is Enraptured. I tend to think these charges are overkill, but when you're just given unlimited charges, suddenly you can use Enraptured with Rite of Seeking to fuel your Spectral Shield. We start talking about weird things. As I mentioned earlier, I think Lost Arcana just gives you more charges than you need and the investment cost for it is too high. Deliverance is a card that doesn't really check out to me in terms of general value. Maybe I played more with 4 player counts and felt safer. Spectral Shield makes this a lot more viable, actually. Deliverance with Spectral Shield probably won't be killing anyone, so that does make it better. But mostly I'm looking forward to seeing our Calvin main come back to Calvin to play Deliverance, play it turn 1 and fucking kill himself instantly. Because that's kind of how I expect this to go. I don't think Deliverance is ever good, but I think it's neat. I think if I'm gonna get cards that I don't like and call binder fodder, Deliverance is the kind of card I would like to have that opinion about. There are a lot of cards where I call them binder fodder. The 3 experience fight attempt only rogue card, that skill, that's like binder fodder for me that I'm not even interested in, and it just feels like wasted design space. Deliverance, I think, is genuinely cool design space, even if I don't think the card is good. And we've covered Eldritch Brand, which brings us to, like, overall, how do I feel about Mystics? Really, really damn hyped, to be honest. I think the new assets we got in the leaks are the most interesting Mystic assets we've gotten in a long time. I think Spectral Shield is insane. I think Brand is a very cool high experience bells and whistle. I think Sword Cane 2 and Enrapture 2 are both just very good cheap experience cards that can elevate the tempo of a deck. We've got some other very cool stuff in here that was older. Great Work is just free experience in my eyes, and I'm a fiend for that shit. I'm using In the Thick of It for Karen's Oval over here. Sure, you have memes like Blood of Thoth in the books, but you also have very interesting cards as alternatives to what already exist. You have Transfiguration. There's so many strong cards that fit smoothly into pre-existing Mystic game plans already, and there are so many new powerful things with the Spectral Shield charge plan. I know that Survivor got a lot. I don't know that I think they got more than Mystic. I'm not hyped at all about the Mystic Investigators, but I am very, very hyped about their new cards. I'm looking forward to playing Mystics more than I ever have. Anyways, that'll be all for now. I've been Rather Incoherent. Thank you for your time. If you made it this far, then please do hit all the buttons below to make the algorithm happy. I greatly appreciate it. It really does help the channel grow. And before I go, a massive thank you to everyone supporting this channel, both as patrons over on Patreon and here on YouTube as channel members. I'll see all of you in the next one.